Senator from Maine.
Madam President, I urge my colleagues to support the sixth bill, fiscal year 2024 appropriations package that is before us. I'm pleased to report that the House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed this bill earlier today by a vote of 339 to 85. It was strongly bipartisan, and now the Senate should follow suit. I want to express my thanks to the Republican ranking members on each of the 6 subcommittees, Senators Murkowski, Moran, Hoeven, Boozman, Kennedy, and Hyde-Smith for their tremendous work in assembling this package. I also want to recognize the chair of the committee, Senator Patty Murray, who has worked so hard since she was named chair and I vice chair in order to bring us to this point. I also want to salute the Democratic chairs for their work. My point, Madam President, is that everyone involved, including our incredibly hardworking staff, have worked night and day to bring us to this point. The measure before us includes the following fiscal year 2024 appropriations bills: Interior, Commerce, Justice, and Science, Agriculture, FDA, Military Construction and Veterans Affairs, Energy and Water Development, and Transportation and Housing. And again, Madam President, although I wish this had happened months ago, these are full-year appropriations bills. In other words, this is not another continuing resolution, not a short-term patch, but rather bills, a package of bills that will fund these important programs and agencies and departments through the end of the fiscal year. This package fully funds veterans' medical care, supports our farmers, fishermen, and ranchers, protects our nation's food and drug supply, provides critical resources for law enforcement, helps us better compete with China, advances American energy independence, and invests in our nation's infrastructure and public lands. This legislation also complies with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, as well as the top-line spending agreement reached between Speaker Johnson and Senator Schumer. Under that agreement, defense funding for this fiscal year will increase by 3.3% relative to fiscal year 2023 enacted levels, while non-defense funding will be held flat. Madam President, that is not easy to do, particularly given the impact of inflation, the 5.2% federal employee pay raise, which many of these agencies are going to have to absorb. So it took a great deal of negotiation and hard work for us to get to this point. It certainly has not been easy, but I am proud of the legislation we are bringing to the floor today. I urge my colleagues to join me in voting to move this important legislative package forward toward enactment. I look forward to further floor discussion tomorrow, but right now I do urge a yes vote on the motion to proceed. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. And I want to thank the Vice Chair who spent innumerable hours with me for a very long time through many, many different discussions and meetings and hearings, and for her incredible work to get here tonight to this vote. Thank you so much. You know, Madam President, this week we will at long last be voting on our bipartisan, bicameral, full-year funding bills. In fact, this package passed the House in a huge bipartisan vote today, over 300 members voting in favor. It has been a long and tough negotiation, long road, tough negotiation to get here. We're not done yet, and I'll have more to say, but I come to the floor tonight to briefly talk a bit about what is actually in these bills and why this is so important to families across the country and to people in states like mine everywhere. My focus all the way through this process from day one has been how can we produce the strongest bills given some very tight constraints, and how can we get a result that will make people's lives better? While this package may not be what I've written on my own, I'm sure my vice chair would say it would not be what she wrote on her own, but we fought very hard to protect investments that matter to working people everywhere and help keep our economy strong, rejecting devastating cuts to housing, nutrition assistance, and a lot more. Importantly, we blocked countless extreme Republican policies like efforts to restrict abortion rights that would have set our country back decades. This package includes investments in our economy, like cutting-edge research, renewable energy, key programs to continue rebuilding America's infrastructure, and funding for my 21st Century Cures Act to support America's world-class biomedical research enterprise. Democrats fought hard to protect investments in rural communities and support our farmers. It includes investments to keep America safe, like funding for more air traffic controllers, rail safety inspectors, food safety inspectors, and to implement the law I passed along with Senator Collins, starting up FDA's cosmetics oversight. This is a major achievement in this bill. And our bills reject unthinkable cuts proposed by House Republicans to federal law enforcement, the people who go after drug traffickers and do so much else to keep our families and communities safe. Not to mention, these bills protect pay for federal firefighters, boost our investments in preventing violence against women, and fund a new program to increase sexual assault nurse exam access that I've worked on. This package also includes investments in our environment and allows Democrats to continue to deliver on historic climate action, even as House Republicans sought to gut agencies like EPA and Interior. We deliver in this bill investments to keep our commitments to tribes, including by continuing to provide advance appropriations so the Indian Health Service can serve patients with certainty and hire staff for hospitals. It also includes investments supporting our service members, which is especially important to me as the daughter of a World War II veteran. It has crucial resources for military construction projects, including child care centers, housing, and other quality of life improvements for our troops and their families. It increases funding for the Veterans Caregivers Program that I helped establish and expand, and makes record investments to help end veteran homelessness, deliver mental health care for our veterans, and support women's veterans health care, all long-time priorities for me. And of course, it includes support for American families. And that means protecting investments to address the housing crisis, something important to my home state of Washington, programs that the House Republicans wanted to hollow out. But we together were able to protect and strengthen essential rental assistance, boost investments to reduce homelessness, and increase our nation's affordable housing supply. And it means full funding for food assistance program families rely on, like SNAP, the summer EBT program I helped establish, which will help 500,000 kids in Washington state alone, and WIC. You know, Madam President, as someone whose family relied on food stamps after my dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I know firsthand that action here can be the difference between families having food on the table for dinner or kids going to bed hungry. So when I saw that the House Republicans proposed devastating cuts that would have forced states to deny families WIC benefits for the first time ever, that was never going to be an acceptable outcome. I said from the outset I would move mountains to fully fund WIC, and that is exactly what I did. But let's be clear, WIC should never have even been put into question, because ignoring the mountains of evidence that this program works, the long history of bipartisan support for WIC, and the fact that this program actually saves us money in the long term. Ignoring all of that, there is just still no ignoring the fact that the basic question with WIC is, can the richest country in the world afford to feed babies? And the answer is yes, it has to be. I can't believe I have to say that, but I will say it as many times as it takes, and I'm glad that we were able to work together to reach a good outcome and fully fund WIC in this bill. And here's the thing about our appropriation bills. They reflect the input and priorities of nearly every senator. As a voice for Washington State, I'm proud of the ways that these bills invest in the communities that I know from every part of my state, with funding for researchers and salmon recovery, infrastructure projects, fixes to make sure that our ferries and harbors are getting their fair share, an historic amount of funding for Hanford cleanup, and more. I'll have a lot more to say about these efforts and other Washington State projects I fought hard to include in these bills, but I am so excited to see this funding make progress, make a difference for folks back home. Madam President, we said from day one that partisan poison pills were non-starters. We said that together. Getting a result in divided government means putting aside that partisanship and working to find common ground. That is how we managed to put together these 6 strong, bipartisan, bicameral bills, and it is the only way we're going to wrap up the next 6 as well, which you should all know we are working very hard on right now. I think we all recognize that some far-right House Republicans have been trying to derail this entire process from the start, but as we saw today in the House, overwhelming 300+ members voted to pass this bill. The vast majority on both sides want to get this done. By passing these bills, we can turn the page and show America that the vast majority of Congress is still focused on doing its job, working through tough negotiations so we can help people and solve problems. And again, I want to thank my partner, Senator Collins, who's been just tremendous in working with us. All of our staffs who've been working on this 24/7 for so long, they are exhausted, and they still have 6 more bills to go. I want to thank our chairs of the appropriations committees that are in this bill, Senator Schatz, Heinrich, Shaheen, and Merkley for their tremendous work, and their Republican counterparts as well, who have really put in a lot of time and energy and have had to say yes and no way too many times, but we got this done. So I hope all of our colleagues tonight will join us in sending that message by voting on the motion to proceed this evening, voting yes, and then working together to make sure we get this to the President's desk before the deadline on Friday. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.